I have heard HR leaders saying that employees are now more than ever coming to them with their own salary benchmarking reports because everybody has access to an LLM or AI, and everybody is now taking it upon themselves to, self-validate data about their own salary and bring it to pay conversations. I wondered if you had seen it before and what your advice is to those working in HR and comp that are navigating this on a, I would say, fairly regular basis at the moment.
It's pretty simple. You have to encourage them to do so. If you tell them not to, they'll do it anyway. Encourage them to do so, but be a little bit more specific. Tell them to open Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT. Ask the same question to all three models, see what comes out of it. I bet 99% you'll get a different answer depending on the model, but also depending on the time.
This episode is brought to you by Instant Impact. Instant Impact provides transformative talent solutions to small and mid-sized companies that are making between 30 and 500 hires each year. If your recruitment's giving you a headache and you don't know where to start, then give the team at Instant Impact a call or visit www.instant-impact.com for more information.
Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About HR. I'm your host, Louise Fraser, and today I am delighted to be joined by Giac Soliman. Giac has a wealth of experience in compensation and reward, having worked for some very big names, including Mercer, Korn Ferry, TikTok, Snapchat, and most recently, heading up compensation at Monzo during hypergrowth. And of late, he has transitioned to going out solo and founded an AI community for reward leaders called Range. So lots of good stuff to get into. I know Giac very well. He is a straight shooter, and we are going to be talking about all things AI, compensation, total reward, and more. So welcome to the show, Giac.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Louise. It's great to be here. And you got a really good setup. The lights, the mics, it feels like we're on TV.
I'm glad that you are enjoying the studio. Now we're going to kick off with a nice straightforward question. Really interested to understand why you chose a career in compensation.
Very good question, and not an easy one to answer. Or maybe, yes, it's quite easy to answer. I did not choose to work in compensation. It just came about. I have my background is in economics, and I was an intern at General Electric just before graduating. But at some point, I found myself looking for a job, and I sent a speculative CV to a company that was called Hay Group at the time, got acquired by Korn Ferry. And they invited me for an interview. And what's the first question they ask you when you're looking for a compensation job?
Do tell.
Could be, how do you design a compensation philosophy? Could be, how do you design an incentive plan?
Yeah.
I got told, you've got a cow. Now, tell me how you're going to make money. Like revenue streams, costs, and everything. I'm like, surely this is a joke. It can't be about... But then I realized why they asked me this question. Because compensation is both about economics, but it's also about human conflict of interests. That's why we often refer in the business, it's both an art and a science. So yes, most of the decisions are in theory formulaically driven, but the human decision itself, carries emotion, carries nuance. And for all these reasons, I didn't choose to go in comp, but I decided to stay. It's at the intersection of anything that's human and psychological, anything that is labor market related and economically driven, which is my background. So that's the story.
How interesting. And I know working in people and HR myself that that compensation and reward it's such an emotive topic, and I'm sure a really interesting space to be in. I wonder if with the wealth of experience that you have in, as I said, with some of those big names, you have any interesting projects that you have worked on that have particularly stood out to you during your career? Any big stories?
Oh man, where to start? You know, the the good part of my journey started in consulting, right? So the good part of that is you gain exposure to so many different industries, so many different companies that have quite diverse challenges. So I mean, obviously, let's start from the coolest ones, but also the most painful.
Yeah.
When a company needs to prep for an IPO, there's a lot of grounds that get shaken up, in terms of, well, we got to get the company clean for an IPO, if you know what I mean. So it's a bit like when a private equity company acquires you and there's some restructuring going in place. But on the flip side, on the brighter side, there's also a lot of incentive plans you need to put in place, which is not something you can do just with mass. Oh yeah, here's £100 if you stay until, like, you generally need to get people to buy in the story, the growth story, the IPO, and what happens next. So it all starts with having these honest conversations with executives that want to know how much of my time and effort you require and I need to put in. And we're talking about extra, not what they're really committing, but
Yeah.
also what's in for me. It is the spike comp is an in-house function. There's a lot of influencing and persuading that is required. And that again is what excites me about the field. And we will definitely get into this because that you cannot like automate with AI, right? There's so much you can do with AI, but that bit you can. And that's why I think it's a great time to be working compensation in this new wave of innovation in AI. But going back to your question, yes, IPOs and incentive design personally is the kind of project that really excited me, because there's no straightforward answer.
Yeah.
Like what motivates one person might demotivate another. And finding that right balance is really about knowing the people first and then going on to the, to the whiteboard and design a scheme.
I love that. So it's not necessarily as formulaic as outsiders might think. There's a lot of psychology behind the decisions that are made on compensation. Very interesting. And I'm going to pull on that AI thread early doors because I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on how the comp and reward space is moving, whether you think that the roles fundamentally or the operating model that might change with compensation and total reward leader positions in the era of AI?
I call it bounded autonomy. So
Nice.
there are things you can automate in the compensation space. There are things you do not want to automate. And the reason is simple. If you make a wrong decision, I'm trying not to keep the French out of my vocabulary. If you make a wrong decision, that decision is very unlikely to be reversed easily. Comp decisions that go to payroll, that go on a paper, on a pay slip, or even a contract amendment, you need mutual consent. So if, you made a mistake or the I made a mistake and you send, the data or the decision to payroll, to legal, contracts get drafted, people sign, you can't really backpedal from that situation. And just imagine the stakes involved. The employee experience is at stake,
Yeah.
but also the employee value proposition and the employer brand, which is high stakes for most companies, especially the ones working in high growth environments, because talent is becoming more and more expensive and niche skills are harder to find. So that's where the concept of bounded autonomy comes in. You can definitely automate the AI will call it grunt work. It's a word I did not know until I used it. Like the tedious work, right? You can definitely automate that. And I mean, you want to analyze dilution in real time. You're maybe reviewing your equity plans. You're granting stock options to your employees. You want to analyze the impact of, a new funding round on your, ownership structure. You can automate all the formula-driven stuff if you're doing with the script, and the AI helps you write the script. But you cannot really automate the decision making itself because the stakes are just too high, right? So I envisage, AI driven agents and humans working side by side rather than AI taking over jobs. And that's why I think it's a great time to be working in compensation. It's funny because compensation as a domain, regardless of what economic conditions we're in, recession, growth, tends to do well, tends to be agnostic, especially executive compensation.
Right.
There's always demand for executives. So there's plenty of reasons to think that compensation as a function, as a human team, will continue to exist. Now, I've spoken to a few reward leaders over the past 7 days that told me about their ambition. One of them is they work for companies that are scaling or expected to scale 2 to 3x within a period of 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And one of their ambitions is to adopt AI, not just to make their team more productive, but in a way that they don't have to grow the team proportionately to the growth of the company. So instead of growing it by 5x, they might grow by 2x, and the rest of the work, the work no one wants to do, such as answering emails from angry employees claiming they're underpaid. They might be right. Who knows? Like, you gotta figure it out. One of their ambitions is really to keep their team lean. And so I think we'll see, the impact is definitely on the company. We'll see AI making that impact, but definitely not replacing the job, just reshaping it, if you will.
Yeah. And that's a theme that we're seeing in many organizations, right? That we want to grow and scale and continue to increase our revenue, increase our profit, but we don't necessarily see our team size growing as much because we're going to take a really good look at how work gets done, and we're going to look at the outputs that we need, and we're going to track back and say, is this something that could be automated? Is this something that could be done by AI? So it sounds like there are similar conversations happening in the comp space as well. I would like to think that you have a pretty good network. Are there any organizations that you think are at the frontier of doing some really interesting projects with AI that you're allowed to share, I suppose?
Well, that's the thing, right? Yes, of course. I mean, as a community guy, I'm all about the network. And I read, there's several reward leaders that share openly what they're doing in their company when they apply for range, but you know what the GDPR says, right? So I cannot make any names, but I can tell you that a lot of I've heard so many great ideas, and these ideas, they're not just ideas. Like, these leaders are genuinely working on these projects. And one project that I keep on hearing about, one idea, is about making sure that comp as a function is more self-serve, in the sense that we work closely with people partners, HR VPs, leadership, recruiters, managers, and oftentimes we get the same questions over and over again. And you're like, just read
it. Yeah.
Notion policy, or just read the documents, but we get it. This is all extra work for managers, extra work for HRBBs. Sometimes they just want the answer straight away. That's the grunt work we're talking about. So the project is, let's create a self-serving tool that knows exactly what our comp philosophy is all about, knows what our policy is, but even more, knows about any pay decisions we made in the past. So it's connected to your HRES, it's connected to your ATS. So when it comes to making an exception, because let's face it, we have rules, but exceptions always apply. There's no rule without an exception, right? The AI can really suggest to the compensation partner, in previous circumstances, this applied 90% of the case, but you might want to consider making an exception for this and that reason. And if you do, that's how you might want to, you want things to take shape. That would be of extreme value, not just for the comp team. Like, here's where the real potential comes in, right? The most savvy comp leaders, they're not just thinking about increasing their own or their team productivity with AI. They know that this is an opportunity to reshape how the business perceives the function.
Love that. Okay.
Oftentimes, we are seen as the gatekeepers. The last obstacle you as a manager need to face before you can get to what you want, right?
Yeah.
And we're here to change that. Instead of being that person, that team that you go to when you need data, we build the tools with which you can self-serve. So now you have the data, you have the context, but you don't make these decisions very often. You might want to consult an expert. That's where comp team come in. We are there to help you understand what to do with the data. This is the aspiration, and I see AI giving us the opportunity and the capability to get there sooner rather than later.
That makes sense. So comp and reward roles shifting to how to have those conversations, best practice, how to negotiate compensation, and the human element around pay is where you see the role moving towards, so long as you've put the right tooling, self-service setup in place. Super interesting. I actually built at Instant Impact, I've built a pay and progression website, which has a pay coach. So I might have to drop that to you for your review.
Brilliant. I love the idea.
Yeah, well, got to keep building, keep myself busy. Those are things. You mentioned community, and I'm going to return back to community in a moment. But there's one question I have to ask, because I move around in the HR leadership space, and I've heard this conundrum a few times now. I have heard HR leaders saying that employees are now more than ever coming to them with their own salary benchmarking reports, because everybody has access to an LLM or AI, and everybody is now taking it upon themselves to, self-validate data about their own salary and bring it to pay conversations. And you're nodding, so I feel like you might have heard this one before. I wondered if you had seen it before, and what your advice is to those working in HR and comp that are navigating this on a, I would say, fairly regular basis at the moment.
I mean, look, it's pretty simple. You have to encourage them to do so. If you tell them not to, they'll do it anyway. So encourage them to do so, but be a little bit more specific. Tell them to open Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT at the same time. Split screen. Now Chrome can do that. Love it. Ask the same question to all three models. Even Microsoft Copilot. Let's not discriminate against Microsoft. So you got 4 models on the screen. Copy and paste the same question. See what comes out of it. I bet 99%, I actually can bet money on this, if anyone wants to take me up on it. You'll get...
I've tried and tested this.
Oh, so many times. you'll get a different answer depending on the model, but also depending on the time. So if the answer is so volatile, if there's no straight answer, if there's no consistency, my question would be, what tells you whether that output can be trusted? Where is it coming from? Where is it gathering the data? It's gathering data from Reddit, from LinkedIn,
Yeah.
from self-declared data. I can go to the next company wants to employ me and say, my expectations are $1 million in salary. For a job, it might be junior. Does that mean that the right salary for the job is $1 million? Of course not. So reliability and verifiability, if we want to invent some terms, is key when it comes to compensation. And with chatbots, that's not always possible. Actually, it's quite impossible. So that would be my advice. Encourage them to do so, but show them that is not always the right source for gathering this information. This way, you can show that you're being collaborative and a true business partner, but at the same time, you're advising them about the risks of basing decisions on unverifiable or thin data.
And I suppose you're also teaching them a lesson in, critical thinking and data validation when using LLMs, etc. I feel like we'll see a rise in the continuation of this trend, but I think that's a really interesting take. So thank you. Now let's talk about you and your recent career move. So firstly, you moved away from, working for organizations and flew solo. I'm keen to understand what drove that decision. And then you created a community. So I'm really interested to understand those moves.
To understand my move, I still haven't understood it fully, to be honest with you. But that's life. You sometimes feel that's the right path. There's no logical, rational reason. But then you think about it and yeah, there's a little bit of logic too. But to answer that question, we need to go back a few years, precisely 13 years back. Now, started in consulting. So that's one side of the pond. Then went to in-house compensation, reward, specifically at high growth tech companies. And suddenly, after 5 years in-house reward, I realized I almost changed job every 18 months to 2 years. And I thought that's going to make me unemployable. But that's when I realized that actually the reason why I was jumping is because I was kind of fed up with doing the same thing. I wanted something new. I was always looking for something new. And that's when I realized that having this range of experience is actually enriching me rather than making me unemployable. And I also realized I kind of want to be the employer, like my own employer. I want to employ myself. So it came a time, I left Monzo without a plan. I just knew I had 2.5 years. It was like a fantastic experience. Monzo is a great company to work for. But I kind of realized, okay, I need to move on now. I need a next challenge. And I didn't know what that challenge might be. I just knew it's not going to be another in-house compensation role. I've had enough of that, from the fire to the frying pan and from the frying pan to the fire. Now I'm just in the fire permanently. So there I was in January thinking, right, what do I want to do with my life? And I thought, okay, I know what I'm good at. I'm good at consulting. I'm good at breaking problems with trade-off. I I'm good at finding solutions. But what do I enjoy? What makes me show up to work?
I love.
And then I realized I like bringing people together. And how am I supposed to do that? And then I realized again, everyone seems to be quite nervous about AI. A lot of people told me, I have no time. I know I have to do it. I know I have to upskill. I know I have to research it. I know how to experiment. But generally, either I have no time or I'm afraid of taking the wrong steps. So that's where the idea came from of a community. It didn't come from AI, thus community, as some people might think. It came from, I want to be a community person. I want to build a community, but the community needs to solve a very concrete pain point and address a challenge that's out there. And now I realize 3 months in, there was no better time to start a community for Total Rewards folks, AI community for Total Rewards folks. So that's compensation, benefits, share admin, and everything that's under that umbrella.
And why do you say that? Why are you saying that now is the best time to have started it?
Now's the best time because after a couple of years that AI has been in the headlines, we all know the tools exist. Like most of the tools, we know they exist, but no one's telling us how to use them. That's where range comes in. But not as a kind of association that lectures you on how to use them, as a safe place where we can experiment together, where we can build together. And everything we build, we keep. That prototype you built together with other 10 leaders in the room might be 60, 70% ready to be deployed in your company. You just need to get the budget, the mandate to customize the tool and bring it to 100% completion. But if you need buy-in from your leadership team, showing them a prototype is much more effective than going in with the slide deck. So that's where the community, it's not just meant to help you upskill and practice, it's also helping you getting buy-in. And that's a real problem in compensation because we all deal with sensitive data. And getting that buy-in is not always easy. You have a benchmark, you have a network, and that's a clear negotiation / persuasion skill. Knowing, showing a almost finished product, but also being able to mention, I'm in this community, and there are leaders that are in the same hot seat as me that are doing exactly X, Y, and Z. Why are we not doing so? Right? So
I like it. And I was thinking, I've certainly benefited from the power of community during my career, and I would say that working in the people space, in a people leadership role, it can be quite siloed. And I imagine that is actually almost 10x in a head of comp or head of reward type position, where often you are on your own in that role, or you may have a couple of people working underneath you in that function, but you are often operating solo. So
absolutely.
I'm not surprised that it's been successful so far. What are the first challenges you're looking to tackle in the community?
First challenge, it has to be with getting people comfortable moving from using chatbots to more apparently sophisticated, but actually easy to use tools like Cloud Code, Codex, even Microsoft AI Studio or Google AI Studio. Tools that were initially, developed for developers, but actually that now non-technical people can use. And I can tell this from my own experience the past 3 months. Once you start, your learning journey looks like a hockey stick.
Yeah.
Like you learn so much and you feel so empowered and enabled that you will want to dedicate at least 30 minutes a day of your time to make progress because you can see the benefit of it. That's the real, like, it is all about enabling people to make progress on their journey and use AI to the best they can, not just to boost their own productivity, but also to provide a better employee experience and also to optimize resources better. Because let's not forget, compensation and reward teams, that's what they're called in for. Optimizing resources, and they deal with millions and millions of dollars or pounds of, compensation data, but also ultimately improve the employee experience. That's the ultimate goal, and that's why it's needed to change the perception of our function to the eyes of the business.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I can't believe that we are nearly at time. So
quick.
I think that quite nicely segues onto a final question around some advice. These you've touched on little bits of advice that you would give. And I wondered if there was a head of people or a head of comp that listens to this podcast and wants to start their own journey in terms of AI fluency within compensation. What's the first move that they need to make?
If you're feeling anxious, if you are feeling stuck, if you're feeling behind, don't wait for others to give you permission. Start experimenting tomorrow. No need to experiment with live employee data.
Yeah, that was my next.
Ask AI to create a dummy, data set that is realistic enough to what you were using 5 years ago. So, that's data obsolete. No one cares of it. Don't wait for others to give you permission. You are the owner of your own learning journey. Despite how many great people you meet on your journey, you're the main protagonist. So it's up to you to make that call. And there's no better moment to start than now.
Love that. Quite a profound piece of advice to end the podcast on. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Giac. It's been really insightful. I've loved having you on, and it's been great to get your take on all things total reward. So thanks again.
Thanks, Louise. It's been great being here.